Are those two things going to make you watch the Olympics?
No, but
Okay.
I have never watched the Olympics.
You've never?
No, I've never watched one event in the Olympics.
Why? You just like
Don't
hate
care
your
to.
country?
No, I just don't care to. It is not something that interests me.
Let me tell you about this guy.
I'll tell you about this fucker right here.
Yeah.
Cared to watch it, but I don't watch baseball, soccer, or basketball. So, and I just started watching football like actively this year. So, if we're being honest, I don't think I'm a good example of everybody else.
Actually, I think you're the prime example of Gen Z. For the first time in podcast history, you're actually the prime example of Gen Z, because sports is not something that is avidly consumed with the Gen Z generation as it was previously with the other generations, I should say. You guys, from the statistics, are more likely to watch sports through highlights, streaming, and that kind of stuff, and you're not going to watch broadcast sports.
Yeah. Are we in? Are we starting, or is this
this is it?
Okay. I was like, I don't know where we're at in this.
We start.
I thought we were starting with. So why do you hate football? So I was waiting for that cue.
Well, sometimes these things just happen naturally, and you just got to roll with it.
Hey guys,
or you get interrupted.
We're in
on the flow.
Yeah, that's whatever. That's fine. Anyways, I'll cut that out. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, is it the 5-minute mark where you just like interrupt it and just kind of like,
well,
say, so why do you hate the NFL? Are you a sports bigot?
Anywho is old. Yeah. So I don't watch sports. I think we've established that. I don't watch many. Like I said, I just started getting into football this year.
So why football?
I wanted something else to do. And it's the right time of year when I wanted something else to do. I feel like football is very universal in this country. Like, even if you don't care about football, most of the time people still know something about it because of family, friends, whatever. It's very influential here. So I was like, well, I need something to do in the wintertime, because I'm sure as shit not going to go outside and play sports.
Well, that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because your generation does not believe in outside.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go outside. So I was like, oh, well, I'll have something to do inside during my afternoons when I'm not doing stuff for this. So, or my evenings or whatever.
Right.
So I don't watch a ton of shows, and, I wanted something that would I knew could keep my attention and busy, or something I could get into over the wintertime. So that's why football. The other reason is because I've always been intrigued by the whole fantasy football thing. And so I figured if I started getting into it this year and watching it next year, I could actually participate and play, even if it wasn't for money, just to play, because it's always sounded interesting.
We would never break federal laws and gamble on sports or have for money fantasy football teams.
Yeah,
right?
we'll never do that. Yeah. So that was really my big motivation. I've got a lot of family members who are really big into football, especially college. We've got family members that play, or participate in college football in some way or the other. So, and I've always kind of kept up with college, at least my family's team, but I didn't actively pursue watching it. Also, speaking of which, I don't know what time that game is today, but I'm pretty sure I'm missing it. So, but yeah, I've been trying to be more proactive about watching football.
I don't think the Alabama game started yet.
I have no idea.
All right. But it is a Saturday.
It is.
And I'll look it up for you.
Yeah,
but
thank you. I appreciate it.
Everything you just said, I boiled it down to you're beginning to like football so you can participate in fantasy football, which is, again, an indoor on-screen activity.
Yeah, it's a game. Yeah, it's just another game that I can participate in.
All right.
But it's live and based on something that's happening now, rather than a like a typical video game or whatever.
Right.
Right.
So you said Jacksonville is your favorite team.
Yes.
All right. So the nearest NFL team where we are is the Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
So if I said you can watch the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Seattle Seahawks on a large screen TV at home, or I've got 2 free tickets where you can go see them in Seattle.
Are you asking my preference?
Which one are you going to go with?
My preference is to watch it at home. But I think my reasoning is probably, I mean, maybe it's on par with somebody who would say the same thing, but it's not because it actually has nothing to do with me not wanting to be outside to watch the game. For me, it has everything to do with I'm still learning the game, and it's already hard enough for me to tell, like, why certain calls are made and things like that when the video camera is like right in their face watching it, let alone if I'm in the back of the seats trying to watch the game.
Mm-hmm.
So especially while I'm still learning more and more about like the sport and how it's played and things like that, it'd be really difficult for me to keep track what's going on when I'm, way further away from what's happening than how close they can zoom in to, what's going on in the game. I feel like the event itself could be a lot of fun. Like you're out there hanging out, eating crappy food, drinking, whatever, right? But it'd be really hard for me to be able to pay attention to what's happening on the field and be able to understand all the moves that they're making.
I get it. And quite honestly, and this may become an NFL problem, but I believe the on-screen experience of football games is better than the live experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone to Seahawk games,
Mm-hmm.
Fuck the Seahawks, but the thing about it is like, okay, so outdoor field, cold,
Mm-hmm.
rain, surrounded by assholes. You don't get the screens, the instant replays, all the different angles. You don't get to hear the commentary. You don't get to hear the explanations from the commentary team about why this is not pass interference or why it should have been or that type of thing. So you actually miss out on a lot of the experience.
Yeah.
Or the commentary and the views and that kind of stuff. So being at home, you get to see all of that. And honestly, home is more comfortable.
Yeah.
You want to go to the concession stand, it's like 10 steps away.
Yeah.
And you can cater to yourself, have all the things that you want
right
for your experience. So
yeah, and I feel like going to a football game with friends would be fun, or if I'm going to, like, let's say I do have a family member that's playing, like being there in support is one thing, and someone who's actively on the field or actively participating in the game. But I think in general, my preference, if I'm watching any sort of sport, it's watching it on the TV.
It's the standard Gen Zer experience.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what other sports do you like? I mean, this isn't a football show. So,
yeah. So I've played a lot of them. I've done, like, well, since we'll get into it in a little bit, right? I've done like the karate and all that stuff, which every 12-year-old has at some point in their life, usually some sort of self-defense. I've played soccer, I've played basketball, I've played baseball. The only sport that I haven't played, like, that's typically like the common ones in school is football, but I've played volleyball, whatever, right? And the only sport that I actively keep up with now is football. I don't keep up with anything else. So I wouldn't say I dislike them, but I obviously don't care to watch them.
Okay. So how about, like, these new sports or new old sports? Like, there's this competitive pickleball happening now. Have you seen that?
Yeah. So I've heard that pickleball has been, like, picking up recently in popularity, and you say new old, so I'm assuming it was a thing that was popular at some point already, and then
there's something that you played in gym class when I was a kid.
Gotcha.
So it's not like somebody invented something.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't think it was like a new invention or anything like that, but I have heard that like it is becoming increasingly popular in I'm going to say not Gen Z, because I have never once heard a Gen Zer playing the game. It's usually people that are like 80 years old. But
no, these people that are playing competitively are not 80 years old.
Well, I'm assuming the competitive ones are not.
It's probably millennials playing because they probably played that in gym and they can't let go of their youth.
Yeah, I had not heard of pickleball until I used to work at Dick's Sporting Goods, and that was the first time that I heard about it when I was in college. But before then, I had never heard of pickleball. We didn't play pickleball in school.
I view it as pickleball is if you really suck at tennis, but you kind of like ping pong. We're just going to mix these things together and create this game.
All right. Yeah, no, I've never played. It is interesting, though, that something like that is becoming increasingly popular.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird games coming up. Sporting things. Like, I don't even know what half of them are called, but Frisbee golf is jumping in popularity, too.
Yeah, and my college added that, like, Frisbee golf things to their campus. And they're not like a sports school at all. Like, they're purely STEM. They had very little sports. But that was one of the first things that they added was Frisbee golf for whatever reason.
I mean, I have a friend who is competitively involved in Frisbee golf out in Western Washington. Loves it to death, you know, more power to him, but I don't get it. But it just seems like people are looking for different things. I mean, even the Olympics is adding new things. Like the upcoming 2024 Olympics. They're adding, what was it? Mountain climbing, which, I don't know. Are you going to like have a race to the top of something?
Yeah.
And if somebody's in a hurry, are they just going to like fall off the mountain?
Yeah.
How's that going to work out?
I do think it's interesting. Like, they are adding these different, I guess, sports. And I'm not saying that they're not sports, but it's going to be interesting to see how they make them competitive and like score them.
Right.
Because it was some of the other things, it's very easy to, like, if somebody's racing is like on, you know, track and field, whatever, like whoever comes in first is who wins,
Did
right?
you get there before the other person? Yeah. All right.
So it's going to be interesting, like, you know, now it's kind of like diving, right? And you're adding in like what's their technique, blah blah blah, whatever, on how to score somebody.
Gymnastics, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you're into gymnastics, you can definitely understand and be able to see technique and that kind of stuff, where as a common person like me wouldn't necessarily, but you can definitely see a wobble or a fall and that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, the only thing I notice is if they wobble or fall, but any other time it's like, oh, that was cool. Like, they all did cool things. I don't know how you judge them, but they all did flips.
But with like mountain climbing, I mean, it just doesn't seem like a sport you want to grade on speed necessarily.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you grade on technique.
Yeah. I mean, if they make it to the top, they make it to the top. Right?
Make it like an Ironman competition.
Yeah.
It's like the person who does not fall off wins.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. And like we were talking about it earlier, and I don't know why like half the sites are calling it one thing and half the sites are calling it something else. You know it as breakdancing, and so do I, but they're calling it breaking for whatever reason.
Yeah, breaking. Like we're breaking arms.
Yeah.
We're going out there.
Yeah. That one has got to be something that's all focused on technique. I mean,
yeah, it's like, it's dance.
Yeah.
It's dancing, and dancing is dancing. Dancing is not a sport. Dancing can be a competitive event. I mean, Dancing with the Stars, you compete against each other. There's a whole bunch of dancing competitions.
Yeah, and I think to clear up, like, Mike doesn't mean that dancing isn't difficult or like physically strenuous. Right. It's just that, like, there are so many events tailored to dancing and dancing as is. Right. So to add specifically breakdancing to the Olympics just seems like a strange thing to add.
It does. I guess between breakdancing and the mountain climbing is, as a Gen Zer, because they're trying to target you guys and not me. They don't give a shit if I don't like that, right?
like he's out the door in a few years.
Like, he'll be dead soon. Who cares about him? They're really targeting you.
Yeah.
All right. Are those two things going to make you watch the Olympics?
No, but I have never watched the Olympics.
You've never?
No. I've never watched one event in the Olympics.
Why? You just like hate your country?
No, I just don't care to. It is not something that interests me. I know people that have watched their specific sport. Like, so I've had good friends that are really into competitive swimming. So like they'll watch their sport, right? Everybody knows who Michael Phelps is, whatever. But I've never sat down to watch the Olympics. I've seen clips, but I've never actively watched it. And
that explains a lot.
I don't know a lot of my friends who have.
Well, back in my day, when we actually had national pride, the Olympics were kind of a big deal. We had this thing called the Cold War. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's when we hated Russia, Russia hated us, but everybody shit to people.
Right. Everybody Everybody stood in the middle, like, who's gonna fire first? Yeah.
So we actually used the Olympics as our way of saying, haha, we're better than you, right?
That makes sense.
So you had that national interest, but I think globalism has kind of killed the Olympic spirit.
You know, it's interesting because I don't know if we've talked about him a little bit before, but Mr. Beast, he's the biggest single person YouTuber on the platform right now, right? He just did a YouTube video a few weeks ago with an Olympic style event, right? Where he had a whole bunch of different people from different countries come and compete in these games that he set up, right? And I think what drew a lot of people into those more than what draws people like my age into the Olympics is this it was the same, like, similar sports of the Olympics, but on an extreme level. So like it was fencing, but with almost like tight roping style, right? Like they were on very thin boards fencing up in the air rather than like fencing on the ground, right? It was very extreme compared to the same sports that they would do in the Olympics.
So why not just do it on the ground, real foils, no armor?
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so I think, and then everybody competing was people, for the most part, you know, I've like probably 35 and under for the most part. There were some older people in there, but I don't know. I think that drew like a lot of numbers and crowd and things like that, and it was interesting. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know any of my friends who actively watch the Olympics, but I think you kind of hit it like you said. There is definitely not the same country pride as there was. There is a active push against being prideful for the country.
At least in Western society.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's not like that everywhere else, right? Everybody else is very prideful in like their country, and everyone here is prideful in the country they came from before this country. But
yeah, it's like, I'm Irish,
right? But not here, and it's very interesting that we do that here.
Yeah, it's a shame to me. Going off topic a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of brought us there, but yeah.
When I was a kid, my hero was Bruce Lee. Probably because we had the same shaped eyes, right?
So hang on, before you start getting into this, we're gonna do some editing magic here.
Okay.
And we're gonna make a change so that the viewers can see what we're got in the background.
Okay. All right.
So I'm gonna snap my fingers, and we're gonna be in a magical new land.
Story time with Mike.
Story time with Mike. All right, and we're back. Okay.
So.
All right, Papa Mike, I'm ready. Tell me a story.
So when I was a kid, My hero was Bruce Lee.
70 years ago?
Not quite. Let's see here. Carry the one. About 45 years ago.
7 years ago.
So Bruce Lee was my hero, probably because we had the same shaped eyes. All right. But, you know, he's Chinese. I'm Vietnamese. Martial artist, for those of you who don't know who Bruce Lee is because you're dumb. But he came to America from China. And when he's being interviewed...
I thought he was Asian.
Only 100%. But when he's being interviewed, people always asked him about his national, you know, what are you as? They always want Chinese or Taiwanese or Hong Kong or whatever. But all he ever wanted to be called was American. And that's what he wanted to be, was American. It didn't matter that his heritage was Chinese. And he looked around, it's like, we're all Americans. Why can't I just be an American? And that's how I always felt too, growing up. It's like, why do I have to be Vietnamese? Why can't I just be American? I mean, the black people are just American, you know? Why can't the brown people, the yellow people, and the red people also be just American? Why do we have to be somewhere else? And now, if you look at it, it's like everybody has to be from somewhere else. And it's ridiculous. So bring back the national pride. Be proud to be an American. There's not a country out there that didn't have some sort of flaw, that didn't do something horrific at some point in their lifetime, in their history. So give it up. Stop dogging on Americans and the West like we're the only nation that's ever done anything bad.
Am I American, Papa?
You're very, very American. Maybe too American. Anyway, that's my story. That's my rant. Be like Bruce Lee. Be an American.
Mike story time. We're too sweaty.
It doesn't work.
All right.
So
back to normal, I think.
So there is actually a new Olympic sport that I'm curious about, that I'm interested in. Surfing. Yeah. So it's already a competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
Just hasn't been included.
Right.
So I'm a fan of surfing. There's the thing about surfing for an Olympic sport is it can't be done just in any place.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's literally what I was just thinking. So the next Olympic Games is in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Where do they surf?
I recommend that they actually do the surfing off the coast of Hawaii, maybe New Zealand. But yeah, if they're going to do this big pool and, artificial waves and that kind of stuff.
Just to show you guys, I'm looking at Paris. So unless they're surfing here, just in the Siani,
the river Insane,
snail eating river. Where are they supposed to surf?
Are they seeing that?
Yeah, they're saying this.
You should do that zoom in, zoom out. Ooh.
Yeah. Like where are you surfing? Unless it's artificial.
Yeah.
I don't find this typically a good place to do surfing.
Me neither. Again, you have to do it somewhere else.
Yeah, or they're going to do the artificial pools, like you said.
Which is, as soon as I see the fake pool, I'm out.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking, too. I mean, if you're going to do it, like, you need to actually do it.
Right. And there's another challenge with competitive surfing is there always this quest for the monster waves, right? And there's currents that you have to follow.
Right.
And they don't follow the exact same season.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I think that it's going to be fake, because there's so much like you just said, there's so many variables, right? Is it the right season? Are they getting the right waves?
Yeah, it's like you'll get like maybe a 2-week window of when these waves are going to hit and where. And so you got 2 weeks to get everybody there and start surfing it.
Right.
So unless they're going to pre-plan it and just go, yeah, it's going to be off the coast of Australia, and there's always going to be some waves, but they're not necessarily going to be monster waves. They're not necessarily going to be babies. So you just have to compete with what you got.
Yeah.
Which is a possibility, but again, I wouldn't exactly call that part of the Olympics in Paris if it's going to be in Australia.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, that's why I don't think it'll be real. I mean, maybe there will be a time when it is, but I have a feeling that it's just going to be simulated waves, and that's what they'll use. They're also adding skateboarding, which
there was a skateboarding or something like that.
Yeah.
And I guess the winter sports had the snowboarding, but it was more of the. I'm not big on thrash community, so I don't know what
I don't know much about it either.
Pipes and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see snowboarding or skateboarding.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be more of this style, like that big half pipe style.
Yeah.
Which could be cool. I mean, you watch the Tony Hawks and that kind of stuff, and
I played a lot of the games too.
I didn't, but I get it at least. I get it. It's not for me, but that is definitely something where I can look at and go, I can see how some people would like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Competitive ballet, I'm out.
I think as far as like Gen Z goes and like the maybe appeal to watch the Olympics, I think that surfing and skateboarding especially, could be a draw. The sports climbing and breakdancing, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to have the effect that they are thinking that it's going to have in drawing that audience in.
I think Gen Z is looking. I think that Gen Z is overall a little bit lost and trying. They're looking for something different, and they're not sure what it is yet.
Well, I think the different thing and something that is becoming more and more popular every year is I know everybody's gonna laugh because I get it. I laugh too, but it's esports. Esports are the thing for Gen Z. Like most of my generation watches either YouTube or some sort of streaming platform, but streaming in the sense that they watch people play games and all of those things, and they watch people do these competitions. Esports is becoming very popular.
Okay, you want to hear a secret? I've actually been intrigued and started doing a little bit of research in owning an esports franchise.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I think I know nothing about it, but I don't think I need to know anything about it, provided I partner up with someone who does.
Yeah.
I like the concept.
Yeah.
All right. I like that we're never going to get rained out.
Yeah.
Right. If you have a decent generator, you're never going to get blacked out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do believe that is a future sport. And it's got the potential to be very profitable. And to maximize that, I think you've got maybe a 10-year window, probably close to a 5-year window to really be in at the ground floor at the lowest price point.
I think you have to be ready to change it up too as we kick in more to this VR and AR stuff that is really gaining traction. So it was starting, and then it kind of died. Companies, kind of stopped putting their time into it. Then COVID happened, and so everybody started ramping it back up again, especially with the whole AI push. So now those are becoming really big. So AR and VR esports, I think, is going to become extremely popular over the next 5 years.
I think, how like they build these storage facilities, just like these big buildings with these garages. I think you have something like that. Just make it a little bit more sexy to the eye and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But each space is a holodeck, like with Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that's your virtual sports. And you have a bunch of those. And it becomes, you can have your competitions in those environments, and it's immersive.
Yeah.
And it's better than those private karaoke rooms.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So fuck your generation 2025, bringing you esports.
There we go. Esports. Maybe we can petition that for the 2028 games.
Yeah.
Esports.
Generational esports.
There we go.
We're going to have the boomers versus the millennials versus Gen X versus Gen Z all in esports.
Right. And then you can go to Vegas and you do the over and under. It's like, you know, how many boomers are going to have heart attacks in the midst of the campaign?
Right.
All right. I'm going over and under is 5. I'm going with the under. Okay. But you can, like, you know, do a parlay onto that. It's like, of those who have a heart attack, how many are going to die? You know? The over under is 2.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So something else that I want to bring up, because we've been talking about this a lot off camera. Flag football.
Flag football.
Flag football is coming 2028 Summer Olympics. How do you feel? What do you think?
I think flag football is great for 12 and under.
I agree. I am 100% on the same page.
I think, in a way, I do see a potential for a long-term degradation of the NFL with flag football, because there's things that you learn, fundamentals that you learn, particularly on the offensive and defensive line, techniques, you know, blocking, getting off of blocks and that kind of, and maneuvering the pads and that type of thing, that you're not going to have. So you're not going to actually learn those techniques until you're 13. So you're setting yourself to be like 6 years on average behind schedule or current schedule. And so 6 less years of experience, it's going to at some point get to the NFL level where the 2030 offensive line is not going to be as good as the 2020 offensive line, just because of the flag football concept.
Yeah. I think that there are certain things with the change in the group coming up that you can make changes to things that were originally one way and change them to another, and it becomes very well received. Like, I think there's some social things that you can make changes to that's like, you know, the big push, right, is more inclusive, blah, 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 whatever. However you feel about it, there are some things that go really well with that, but then there's some things that don't. Like, a great example of recent is Bud Light, right? They made a change. It was the demographic that's drinking Bud Light is not my demographic, so the change was very poorly received, and it seems like, or at least their own people have said, we probably won't recover from this. This is our new normal, right? And I think that's the same issue that you're going to have with the NFL and football. I think if you push that change on there, it's not going to be well received by the group that you're intending it to be well received by. Because even Gen Z that I know of, and most of Gen Z still is very big into at least watching the sport. I've never heard of any of them pushing for flag football. Me neither.
And it's done based on health, right? Because there's so many injuries. There's this big push with head injuries, you know, traumatic brain injuries and that type of thing, CTE. And I get it, right? And that's why it's like 12 and under, we probably don't need to be subjecting kids that age.
No, it's probably a terrible time,
But I also believe that if we actually got more rugby coaches or got football coaches to hang out with rugby coaches and learn rugby, there's significantly less injuries in rugby than in football.
And that sport, in my understanding, is way more rough.
It's rough, but
the same.
Well, one, they don't have the helmets, right? So no helmets. You're not using your helmet as a weapon, right? So you're you're typically not going to dive in head first into somebody else if you don't have a helmet.
Right.
But you do have a helmet. And I was like, oh, I've got this helmet. It's going to protect me so I can slam somebody else with it.
Right.
So that's part of the problem. Also, rugby does a much better job of teaching good fundamental tackling.
Gotcha.
I watch NFL football, and there's so much I'm just going to dive in there and hit him with my shoulder. Rugby is all about wrapping up and doing the tackling the right way, and it's just hammered in there time and time and time and time again.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense because it's the same thing. Like, think about how many injuries there are in like high school wrestling and things like that, right? You don't have guarded areas and things like that like you do in football, but proper technique of taking somebody down to the floor.
Absolutely.
You're not slamming into them and all of that stuff, right?
You've got these big shoulder pads, right? So I'm just going to launch myself. I got shoulder pads to protect me, so I can just launch into somebody and try to hit them as hard as I can.
Yeah. I watch it happen at least every other week, right? They slam into them with their shoulder, and then after that, they're on the ground and their shoulder hurts. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like,
and it's also like, you got the momentum, right? So you hit them as hard as you can, but the momentum is going in such that you slow them down, but they're still upright because they have that momentum as well. And then they keep on going.
Right.
You know, I just saw that. You know, my favorite teams is the Rams. God rest my soul.
That's who I'm talking about. I saw it the other day. Yeah.
He hit a quarterback.
Yeah.
And bounced off the quarterback. Granted, the quarterback's pretty big. It was Jalen Hurts, I think it was. But you just wrap that dude up and take him to the ground. That's all you need to do. And it's just like, you got to hammer it in, and it's got to be done from the very first year of football.
Yeah. The other thing too, with all the extra support that you have that you're wearing, that's why we have the fouls on, you know, holding and grabbing onto face masks and things like that. But if there's nothing to grab, then you're not going to grab for it, right? And when people get yanked down from their neck area by their face mask, it's pretty serious, right? It hurts. It doesn't feel good.
I've been there, done that.
Yeah. So it just, you know, stuff like that where if you're teaching, I agree, if you're teaching fundamentals without all the protective gear, when you're actually wearing it, you're going to be much more in control of what's happening.
Right. But you're going to have this adjustment period because shoulder pads are limiting with your arms and how you move it.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes it's, you know, wide receivers have different shoulder pads than offensive linemen because they got to be able to reach up and catch the ball. So there's going to be adjustment periods and that type of thing. And that's why I think junior high is probably the age to adjust from no pads to pads.
Yep. I don't think it's going to be received well. I just don't think flag football is going to go over the way they want it to. And you suggested the other day that maybe they're like testing it, like, oh, let's see how it goes.
They are. Let's see, who can I offend here? I think we get just softer and softer. So I guess I'll just offend everybody. And so I think they're just kind of saying how soft can we go and still maintain interest. And I'm just like, honestly, when you're watching baseball and a guy gets hit with the baseball, you really want to see the fight. Right? Just charge him out. You want to see fists hitting faces and that kind of stuff.
Every time I see them and like the camera zooms in on the two people talking shit on the field, I'm like, oh, let's go. Like, are we going to see it? Is it going to be the day? And then they stop or whatever. I'm like, damn it. Maybe next time.
For once, wouldn't you just like to see both teams come out there and surround them? Just, all right, you two, figure it out right now. And both teams just let them go at it.
Yeah, I mean,
hockey does it.
Yep.
To a point, right? Yeah. Once somebody goes down, then you separate them. So, honestly, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and I think there is an extent where when you do push something to that level of like, flag football or whatever, you're just going to lose interest. I think that's why a lot of people, at least especially my age, don't watch the other sports. They still watch a lot of basketball, but like baseball, it's just not there.
Yeah. Baseball it's cerebral. You've got to understand a lot of it in order to gain an interest in some of it, right? Because you just look out there and pitch goes by, hitter hits it, guy catches it, all right, that was it, right? But when you know more about it, then you're like, okay, you got a runner on second base when he's up to bat. If he hits it to the right side, the runner can advance to third base. Right. And that'd be only one out, and then he can score on a fly ball. And you start thinking about all these other things, then it becomes a little bit more interesting.
Right.
But, you know, I do feel bad for someone who hasn't played it, trying to watch it for the first time, because there's so many nuances that you have to understand before it even starts to become of interest.
Yeah.
So I don't project baseball to gain in popularity, partly because of that. The other part is because you can't play a pickup game of baseball like you can play a pickup game of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play 3-on-3 baseball like you can play 3-on-3 football.
Right.
So you actually have to have 18 people to play a game of baseball. And then you have to have a field that you're not going to get kicked off of.
Yeah.
Right. And as a kid, I went like to the high school, to the practice field to just hit around with my buddy, kicked off of that, go to a public park. You got to reserve the field, get kicked off of that. And it's like, yeah, no wonder everybody hates your stupid sport. You keep kicking us off, telling we can't play it.
The other thing too is, like, especially for people my age, the advertisement isn't there, right? There are very, very popular mainstream football and basketball games that attract my generation to actually watching the sport. There are baseball games, but they're not as popular as, you know, the classic, like, Madden and all of those things are for the other sports. Even for soccer, there are more popular games for soccer than there are for baseball.
Baseball needs to transform. You dome it, you put little holes in the dome, so if a ball happens to go through the hole, then you get a home run. All right. Other than that, all balls are in play. All right. And there's like no such thing as a base runner, and it's full contact.
Just full slamming into people.
Right. So you hit it up here, it bounces over there. You got to get back to home plate before they tag you. And heck, maybe you could just hit them with the ball too. Like in kickball, you can just hit them with the ball, and they're out.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of kickball, I think that should be a competitive sport.
Kickball?
Kickball.
I think that would be much more entertaining to watch than baseball.
I think it would too, actually. Kickball, especially use that red one, and you can drill the runner. I think that should be an Olympic sport.
Or dodgeball. I'd love to see dodgeball as an Olympic sport too.
Crown somebody right in the face, watch their feet go up in the air.
Yep.
Yeah. That sound. That wonderful, wonderful sound.
Yep.
I used to call it nuke 'em when I was a kid. You just go out there and try to hit somebody as hard as you possibly can and hope they didn't catch it, because then you're out.
Yep. Oh, man. Well, guys, let us know in the comments. What do you think? Flag football, good or bad?
Yeah.
What do you think about the new sports that are being added? What do you feel like should be added? Let us know.
Yeah. Like, subscribe,
comment.
Hit that notification bell. Ding, ding.
Ding, ding. All those good stuff.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching.
Peace be the journey.